Hi everyone, my name is Jordan. Today I'm going to be going over a middle school concept of cell organization into larger things like tissues, organs, and organ systems. Like I said, this video is intended for middle schoolers. However, some of the images and content can be useful for AP Biology or Anatomy. Before watching this video, you should already know the terms eukaryote and prokaryote. You should already know the difference between those two things, and you should already know what plants and animal cells are and the difference between those things. Okay, let's begin. Here we have a cartoon, but her name is Karen. Karen is going to be representing a real person for us today, and to make her more real, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Karen is 25 years old. She likes playing the piano and watching movies. Her favorite dessert is milkshakes, and her favorite color is blue. Karen is representing an adult with no history of major illnesses, and she's going to be our guinea pig today as we're going to be diving deeper into the human anatomy. So if we we're currently at the organism level. Karen is a human. But if we dive one level deeper into Karen's anatomy, we're going to see that she's composed of what we call organ systems. There are a lot of organ systems that make up the body. In this picture here, you have the skeletal system made up of your bones. This would be the nervous system composed of your nerves and your brain. This would be the circulatory system. You have the respiratory system, your digestive system, and your muscular system. Now, all of these things are different because they all perform different functions in your body. For example, your immune system, that is responsible for fighting off disease for you. So if your parents give you vitamins, they'll probably tell you that this is to build up your immune system. If you have a strong immune system, it's going to keep your body healthy and happy. Your respiratory system, that is what is responsible for helping you breathe. So people with asthma, their respiratory system has to work a little bit harder than other people's. And your circulatory system, that's going to be a major one for today. That is responsible for pumping your blood throughout the body. We're going to focus on this as our example. You can see that the circulatory system, it's composed of different parts, and all those parts are called organs. All of your organ systems are made up of organs. You can see that organs look very different. They can look like bones or they can look like muscles. So we said we were going to dive into the circulatory system, which is pictured here. We're going to dive into the heart. The heart is the major organ in the circulatory system. It's responsible for actually doing the pumping of your blood throughout your body. Other parts of the circulatory system include your veins, arteries, and capillaries. Those are responsible for transporting your blood throughout the rest of your body. Each organ has a particular function in the organ system, and those functions are all similar. In the circulatory system, all those functions are about blood and distributing blood throughout your body. So we're going to dive one level deeper into the heart, and we're going to see that the heart is made up of what we call tissue. Tissue is groups of cells that are based on similar functions. There are 4 types of tissues here. Your first one is your connective tissue. You can kind of see the cells in the tissue. These dark circles are going to represent the nucleus of those cells. Your connective tissue is responsible for connecting your organs and other tissues. Your epithelial tissue, this is responsible for covering your organs and protecting them from the outside. You can see that this looks like a cluster of cells, a cluster of very simple cells. Your nervous tissue, that is responsible for carrying signals throughout your body. It can be found in organs such as your brain, your spinal cord, and nerves. Again, you can kind of see that this looks like groups of cells all clumped together. And our last type of tissue is going to be our muscle tissue. So that's actually what your heart is made of. Your heart is made of a certain type of muscle tissue called smooth muscle tissue. That's what allows your heart to move. So when it pumps, it's going to stretch and then come back together and contract. So your muscle tissue, all those cells, they are able to expand slightly so that the whole organ can expand. And that's just allowing your organ to move. Our last level that we're going to dive into is going to be the cellular level. So in middle school, you should have talked about cells already. Cells are the smallest unit of life, and that's what your tissues are made of. There are different categories of cells that you've probably heard of. For instance, eukaryotic cells, they have a nucleus, which is this circle here in the middle, and they have organelles, which can vary, have all these different labels. Plant cells are also eukaryotic. The difference between plant and animal cells is that plants have chloroplasts. So humans are considered animals because we do not have chloroplasts. We do not perform photosynthesis. Instead, we get our energy from the food that we consume. So each cell in your body has a certain function, and the cells in your body aren't really going to look like these diagrams I have here. They're definitely not going to look like the plant cell because we are not plants, but they're also not just going to look like what we see a typical animal cell looking like. So here's a picture of a couple different cells in the body. You can see that every one has a different shape, size, and sometimes color, and they're all going to have different functions as well. So the blood cells, that's what your circulatory is actually pumping throughout your body. It's blood cells. And blood cells are able to carry things like oxygen and nutrients throughout your body. We talked about muscle cells earlier. They are able to contract and move, which is what allows muscles to do. And all these other cells have specific functions that make them unique and make them their own category. So to sum up, we've been looking at Karen's anatomy going in one direction. We started at the organism level, and that was Karen. We dove one level deeper into her circulatory system, which is a type of organ system. One level deeper, we saw that her organ system was made of organs. We specifically looked at the heart, and inside the heart was muscle tissue. Here it says cardiac muscle. Cardiac just means heart. And in the tissues, we have groups of cells. So the cardiac muscle tissue is made up of muscle cells. So it's very important to know that we looked in one direction, but you can also look in the other direction. So in this direction, we were getting from some bigger things to smaller things. And you can kind of think of this like Russian dolls. You have one big Russian doll, and if you take off the top, you'll see that there's another smaller doll inside. If you take off that top, another smaller one. So you can kind of think of this starting at our organism, Karen. If you go one level deeper, organ system, organ, tissue, and the very smallest thing was cells. However, you can also look at it in the other direction. So if you start with the smallest thing, that's going to be what we have here is a neuron, which is a nerve cell. So that's going to be the smallest thing in this case. Your nerve cells carry signals in between cells, and they pass them along throughout your body. Those are actually some of the biggest cells in your body. But we'll start at the smallest level with the cell. If you group a bunch of cells together that have the same function and structure, you're going to form a tissue. This is nervous tissue right here. If you group tissues together, you're going to form an organ. Right here, this organ would be the brain. The brain is made up of more than one type of tissue, but one of the tissues in there is nervous tissue. And if you have a group of organs together performing the same function, you're going to get your organ system. If you put organ system together, you're going to get an organism, which in this case would be Karen. This example, you can kind of think of Legos building together. So if you start with one single Lego, that's going to be a single cell. You can't do much with one Lego, so you have to build more and more Legos. So if you have a bigger group of Legos, you're going to have a tissue. And if you have multiple tissues, organ, multiple organs, organ systems, and multiple organ systems, you'll have the organism, which in this case is the human body. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something.